President, we need bipartisan tax reform. We should simplify our tax code. It's gotten filled over many years with all sorts of junk that was put there by high-powered lobbyists rather than because of the public interests. Unfortunately, this bill has nothing to do with tax reform. In fact, it's hard to believe you could take a tax code that's already stacked in favor of the very wealthy and the very powerful and make it even more favorable to the very wealthy and very powerful, but that's exactly what this Republican tax plan does. And Exhibit A about how this has nothing to do with tax reform has to do with the carried interest loophole. Many may recall that during the last campaign, candidate Trump, whenever he was talked about the need to reform the tax code, what was his number one example? He said, we've got to get rid of the carried interest loophole for hedge fund managers. Go back and run the tape. Every time somebody asked him what was broken about the tax code, that's what he said. In fact, he said, and I quote, "The hedge fund guys are getting away with murder. They're making a tremendous amount of money. They have to pay taxes." That was candidate Donald Trump. Well, here we are. Shortly, we're going to vote on the final Republican tax plan. And guess what? In a tax plan that's over 500 pages, nowhere do they get rid of the carried interest loophole for hedge fund managers. Hedge fund managers are still going to get a better tax rate than the people who work for them. Better tax rate than their secretaries, better tax rate than their assistants. So, in candidate Trump's words, in this tax bill, it looks like those hedge fund managers are still, quote, getting away with murder. And that's why it's a farce to call this tax reform. All it is stacking the tax code more in favor of the very wealthy and the very powerful. In fact, if you're a millionaire in America, you're going to get an average annual tax cut of $70,000. It's great if you're a millionaire. At the same time, millions of middle-class taxpayers are going to pay more. The folks who get the biggest windfall, big corporations, their tax rate will go from 35% to 21%. Now, who are these folks? Well, primarily they're the folks who are already the wealthiest people in this country. But I bet a lot of people will be surprised to learn that 35% of the stockholders in those American corporations, they're foreign stockholders. 35% of the folks who have stock in these companies are foreigners. So in the year 2019, foreign stockholders are going to get a $48 billion windfall from that big corporate tax cut. In that same year, 11 million Americans will pay more taxes. So money out of the pockets of middle-class American families into the bank accounts of foreign stockholders. That doesn't sound like America first to me. Doesn't sound like middle-class taxpayers first to me. In fact, I want my colleagues to see just how skewed this tax bill is. Because I mentioned that about 11 million Americans are going to see their taxes go up right away, but if you take the tax cut to every working class family in every state that Donald Trump won in the last election, and you add up all their tax cuts, it's still $5 billion less than what foreign stockholders get in the year 2019. Think about that. These are families that make about $100,000 or less. You take the tax cut that every family in every state that Donald Trump won, you add them all up, all those tax cuts, it still comes out to less than foreign stockholders are going to get in the year 2019. I'm going to tell you, the American public, when they find out what's in this tax plan, they're going to get madder and madder. I heard Speaker Ryan say, well, people are going to see the results and they're going to like it. The more they see the results, the madder they are going to get. And here's the thing. It gets worse with time. There are some things that do well over time. This gets worse. When this bill fully kicks in, the tax cuts for American families expire. They're small relatively to start with, and then they expire. But the tax cuts for corporations, they're big and they're forever. And you know what that means? That means those foreign stockholders are going to have their tax cuts go on forever. In fact, when this fully kicks in 10 years from now, those foreign stockholders are going to get a $23 billion windfall in that year. But average American families making $75,000 or less, $75,000 or less on average, are going to see their taxes go up. Going to see their taxes go up when this fully kicks in to give that tax windfall to foreign stockholders. That is a bad deal for America. It's a bad deal for the middle class. We should say no to this tax bill. We should start over and do real tax reform that benefits middle-class families and those working their way into the middle class. This is not it. Let's start over. Let's vote this down. Mr. President, I yield back the remainder of my time.